Welcome back to SwitchStars, my name's Luke, and today on the channel we're checking out Battle Stations Blockade, a new 3D rail shooter from developer Mission Critical Studios and publisher East Asia Soft, which tasks you with navigating treacherous waters, controlling a pair of gun turrets as you obliterate paratroopers, sink submarines and blast enemy aircraft out of the skies. It's hectic as hell and harks back to the classic rail shooter days with a modern lick of paint for good measure. But is it any good, and should you drop the cash on it? Well, drop a like, subscribe for more Switch content, and let's find out. So as expected, the story is wafer thin with this one, but the main campaign of the game takes place over a series of 10 different missions, with you first finding your bearings and graduating at the academy, the game's tutorial mission, before taking to the seas under the direction of this Postman Pat looking Navy General. Throughout the 10 missions though, you'll be instructed to battle the enemy, no specific enemy, just the enemy, and as the forces grow in power you'll face off against larger, more dangerous weapon systems as you attempt to dominate the seas and decimate their forces. Now the main campaign can be tackled in both single player and 2-player co-op modes, with each player requiring only a single Joy-Con to play, though unfortunately there are no gyro controls in this one, and so you'll be controlling the on-screen reticle using the left thumbstick. The controls are extremely simple though. Aim your cursor at the enemy, use the right trigger to fire your weapons, and switch between weapons by either tapping left and right on the D-pad or holding down the left trigger to open a weapon selection wheel, and it takes a few seconds to switch them out before you're able to fire again. Overall, there's some nice variety to the weapons in the game, with them ranging from standard 50 cals and missile launchers to railguns, mine launchers and even a miniature nuke launcher. However, the cooldown is way too long on many of them, and most of them are not very effective against the large numbers of enemies that you'll be facing, so I personally found myself switching between a few select weapons, with the most overpowered scattergun being my personal favourite. Now, like I said, this one is a rail shooter, so all the movement in the game is done for you, and your gunboat will proceed automatically through the levels, occasionally stopping at various points of interest. But all you have to really worry about is shooting stuff, meaning it's an easy one to just pick up and play. When it comes to the levels themselves, whilst the routes through each of them is different, the standard tropical environments are switched out occasionally, and there's a day-night cycle which adds a little extra atmosphere to them. The gameplay remains the same throughout, and the only thing that has any real impact on it is the variety of enemies that you'll face. These enemies take the form of various land, sea and air forces and start off relatively tame, with a few mines and gunboats thrown at you, as well as some land-based turrets and aircraft. But before long you'll be besieged by a constant stream of enemies, from Titanic warships and airships to fighter jets, V-12 missile batteries and even giant robotic crabs. The variety here is pretty decent, and the persistent action makes for engaging gameplay. However, there's rarely a second of downtime, the levels themselves are pretty long, and there's very little defining one level from the next, so I found the formula became pretty repetitive and at times even a little worrying. Finally, there are also missions given to you throughout each level, though these are nearly impossible to fail and only add points to your score, which in turn increases your rank and position on the high score leaderboards, which unfortunately are offline only. Now, each of your turrets comes with its own health bar, and to deal with the onslaught of enemies thrown at you, each enemy you defeat restores a portion of these health bars, so the focus is on chaining together kills to keep yourself alive and topped off. But the game comes with 4 different difficulty settings, and although I played it on solo on the easiest setting, there were still times when I found my health bars dip into dangerous levels. The higher difficulties not only increase the damage you take and reduce the visibility of your reticle, but also introduce new weapon overheat mechanics, in which a heat meter fills as you fire your weapon and stops you from firing once it reaches full. And even on the second highest difficulty, the game proved nearly impossible given the amount of on-screen enemies and the amount of damage that I was taking. Overall though, I have to admit that my experience with the campaign mode was a somewhat mediocre one. there was some nice variety to the enemies and weapons, and the odd boss fight made things a bit more interesting, but by and large there was very little to separate the gameplay experience from one level to the next. The high score and rank mechanics also didn't really seem to serve much purpose, and the bonus enemies in levels, which add multipliers to your score, often escaped before I even had a chance to take them down, so this whole aspect kind of felt like a bit of an afterthought. And the game's eShop description does mention that ranks are supposed to unlock new upgrades, but these were nowhere to be seen, and I can only assume that the more powerful weapons were intended to be these upgrades, but this appears to have been abandoned at some point, with them instead all unlocked from the start. Given the number of enemies and the level of challenge with the higher difficulties though, it felt to me like this one was first and foremost intended to be played as a co-op game, and I'd say that co-op mode is definitely where you're likely to have the best experience with it. Finally, to round things off, the game does also have a competitive mode in which each player has their own score tracker and battle against one another for the highest score, and as you can see from the gameplay footage, it was impossible for me to play this solo, but it should offer some extra replayability despite its gameplay format remaining mostly the same. All in all, Battle Stations Blockade is a cheap and cheerful high score chaser which doesn't look to overcomplicate things, and I appreciated its blocky voxel style pixel aesthetics, but after a while, its simplicity does overstay its welcome, and I would have really liked to have seen more thought put into levels to offer more unique scenarios for me to battle through. It's an easy one to just pick up and play though, and it's well suited as both a simple time filler game, or one that younger gamers can enjoy without having to master any complicated mechanics. With that said though, is Battle Stations Blockade one that you're considering picking up after this review, or if you did already take the plunge and buy it, how did you find it? Let me know down in the comments section below, drop a like if this review helped you out, and consider subscribing to the channel if you're looking for more Nintendo Switch content. For now though, as always, I want to thank the patrons of the channel for their ongoing support, and to you the viewers for watching, and until next time, take care of yourselves and game on.